Welcome to Talking Again podcast. This is The Tap. I am your host, Fidel Avendaño. Thank you for tuning in to the podcast with stories from fascinating people, some of them my closest friends and family. I hope you enjoy the show. Now let's tap into it. I know, right? How long has Uh, how long has it been how long has it been since we've been in the quarantine and you guys haven't recorded? Over a month, right?
Man, over a month for sure. I was gonna say like 5, 6 weeks maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it? Wow, it seems like it's longer. Is it starting to feel a little normal for you now or no?
Normal? No, I wouldn't describe it as normal.
Yeah. Are
No, I think there's different things that I'm having to get adjusted to all the time that I didn't account for.
yeah.
You
Like
know,
what?
I'll give you an example. So when we first started, it wasn't that hot out. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Right.
I don't have air conditioning in my house,
Oh.
and I'm working in my bedroom, and I have to close my doors and everything because obviously my daughter, just like your kids, I imagine they're at home most of the day, and I'm working from home. So I didn't account for the fact that it's going to get like 150 degrees in here when it heats up. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
And so now I'm like, oh, I have to figure out, what am I going to do to make it so I can take meetings and stay cool and stuff. Open the windows, but I'll get the gardeners and stuff
Oh yeah.
outside, the
Sirens.
trucks, and all the time. So it gets to be distracting, man. So I'm just discovering new little things like that all the time. Yeah, it's tough.
That's the problem that I have at the studio here, and this we had this at the old podcast, How We Talk. I don't know. I don't remember when you came to record. Was it summer or
I don't remember exactly.
I don't remember either.
It wasn't that hot though, for
It
sure. I was
wasn't.
wearing a jacket, I think.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
then, okay. So, well, when it was hot, dude, it was hot in the garage. No insulation. The garage doors closed because again, we don't want to hear the crickets. Oh, we had a problem with crickets. We would call it our in guest studios, or in
Yeah,
studio
yeah.
guest.
In studio guests,
Yeah,
your live studio audience.
yeah. Those were the
Right.
crickets. If they
Yeah.
weren't singing, that means you weren't doing a good job.
Not to complain though, because I'm fortunate with my job. I'm able to work from home and do all these different things. So I know that there's plenty of people who have it, a lot worse than I have it. So I'm kind of talking about. I'm nitpicking. I'm nitpicking little things that I have to get accustomed to. But I'm a homebody anyway. I'm a pretty, believe it or not, a private dude. So
Yeah,
it doesn't take much adjusting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like I was telling you, we were speaking yesterday. I I'm still out there working, so I haven't
Yeah.
seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen much of the change as far as like for me. There's not much. The traffic, even though the last couple of weeks we've seen a lot more traffic. People are out there, dude. And I keep hearing different stories. Well, my podcast lately has been. I don't know if you've been listening, but it's been a lot of COVID talk. You
Yeah.
know,
Of course.
so I
Of
mean,
course
you
it has to.
can't not talk about it, right?
Yeah.
It's like that pink elephant in a room, right?
Definitely.
Um,
Definitely.
but yeah, I mean, it's just the whole like I said, people going out. I think they're starting to change it up. Like, you know what? I'm not afraid of it anymore. I'm not fearful of this virus. There's still some people that are freaking
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't describe myself as afraid of it. I would just describe myself as cautious.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Take the necessary precautions to protect myself, to protect my family, to protect those around me.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, I have grandparents who are still alive, so I want to do my best by them. So
right.
I wouldn't say I'm afraid so much as I'm cautious, but I try and get out and take walks and stay active. Things like that. You got to continue to exercise. You can't be in all day. So I'll walk around the neighborhood, or I spent a few weekends ago. I built a bunch of makeshift boxing equipment.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it was hanging that up in the gym, in the garage. I mean, and just hammering away on it so I can let out some of the aggression, do some of that stuff. But
yeah. I was listening to a podcast earlier. Mario Lopez, the three knockdown. What is it called?
yeah,
The
yeah.
three knockout rule, or
Mario Lopez and Steve Kim.
yeah. And
Yeah,
Mario was saying that he's not gonna live in fear, but he ain't gonna be dumb about it. He's gonna do his due diligence, right? Wear the mask when he goes out
yeah,
for others, people
yeah. Of
around him.
course.
And one thing that he said, kind of like what you just said right now about the boxing equipment, is there's gonna be two people. There's gonna be the ones that just sit around, drink, and just lay at home and wait around for this shit to be over and get fat and unhealthy. And then there's gonna be the ones that take advantage and go, I'm gonna work out and get in my best shape I can and fit for summertime.
Yeah,
You
for
know?
sure. I can understand understand that. I mean, I went several weeks without kind of working out or doing any kind of exercise. I would say the first week I forgot to go outside for like 4 or 5 days in a row.
Oh, wow.
Because I was just working at home and stuff. And then my family was kind of telling me like, "Hey, you haven't been outside like at all."
Yeah.
And I was, yeah, that's true. And I think last time I was on, I talked to you about boxing is healthy for me in a lot of different ways, physically, mentally, mostly. And I think that I had to find a way to get back into it, absent a gym.
Yeah.
But I don't have the space necessarily to just have like a heavy bag. Like my garage has stuff in it, and there's a lot of people running around the house and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Even this, like to work from home, there's 2 closets in my bedroom. I cleared one of them out, so I work in one closet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's like where I set up my little office space so that I could work and stuff like that during the day. So I was like, just hey, what could I use around the house?
Yeah.
So I started like taping up sleeping bags and wrapping volleyballs and T-shirts and just trying all kinds of different things.
You're gonna have to YouTube like prison workouts.
Man, you know what? I actually think I could get some hits showing how I made those bags and stuff like that.
You probably can. Did you video that at all?
No, but I could do it again.
Oh yeah, you should,
it's
man.
Just like a T-shirt and some bungee cords and
yeah,
stuff like that. A sleeping bag on one of them. I could probably do it again. I was filling bags with dirt from the garden, like I was sifting the dirt and filling Ziploc bags with dirt and then shoving those in sleeping bags and like taping them up.
Nice.
Doing all that stuff, but I don't know. I haven't gotten used to doing anything besides the podcast on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like actually hosting, like all the followers on YouTube, they come from, Coach kind of going through. And Coach Marco Trejo, the owner of Sweet Science Gym, going through and showing some tutorials and demonstrations. That's where a lot of the followers came from. But he's a boxing coach, and I don't really feel like that at all because I'm not one.
Yeah.
And so I think that I haven't worked up the nerve yet to say, hey, I'm going to make a video that's not me just doing this. That's not just sitting down and talking about things that I'm passionate about, but really some kind of tutorial or training or anything like that. I haven't opened myself up to that yet.
Well, with that said, I think you, like you said, not being a professional and not being a professional coach, but you actually doing it and putting it out there, it's probably you're talking to the everyday man, So it's gonna hit a lot of people, and it's gonna be like, all right, if this guy can do it, I can do it.
People are cruel on YouTube, bro.
Oh, dude, you can't read those comments, man.
Oh man, do you read? Man, I can't help it.
No, you know what? I don't get too many comments, so I read all of them. I get one or two, a few comments. You comment on some of the videos, so I don't get too many comments. So I do read all of them, and there are those haters, but I welcome them just like I welcome the positive ones, because they're listening.
That's true.
And I don't care if they're talking shit. Most of it is because of my team selections, but
I got you.
But I'm cool with it.
There's kind of two. There's with the podcast, you get one kind of series of comments or one type of comment that's negative. I think with boxing tutorials, like if I were to get into doing things like training, it opens it up to just a completely different type of negative feedback, which is just like criticism on things like techniques, whatever the case is. Someone, he didn't turn his foot right, his hip didn't go over, his shoulder didn't do this. That's the thing that's interesting is like nobody agrees on anything.
Yeah.
Right. So like you can go to 3 different coaches, they'll give you 3 different opinions about how to throw a right hand. So anytime you see a cat on YouTube doing something like throwing a right hand or doing anything like that, there's 1,000 comments of people just talking about how they did it wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
so I think, I don't know. It's just inviting so much negative criticism.
Yeah, but those people those are the people that don't know, and like you just said, there's different styles, right? Different styles of coaching, different styles of fighting. Different it reminds me of that video that was surfacing after the Cowboy Cerrone fight when he got laid out by McGregor. Stephen A. Smith. Yeah, Stephen A. Smith went out there, started talking shit, and then they showed a video of him working out, and he was throwing low blows. And everybody was clowning him. I mean,
that's true. I have some questions about the gentleman holding the pads as well, just because I'm not sure what combination that was.
That's exactly what I thought. I'm like,
but that's all right. Like,
hey,
a lot of times it's just about getting the workout, right?
Right.
It's about getting that exercise.
Yeah.
So and more power too. Not everybody's training to be a professional boxer. Some people just want good exercise, and it'll give you great exercise.
Oh yeah.
It'll work out your whole body, So so I can't hate too much on it,
Yeah.
But I get why people were particularly critical when someone spreads as much kind of criticism as he may in the fight community or in the boxing community.
Yeah.
And then look at him. That's the other thing is, I think fighters, and actually, it's not really just fighters, so I'm not going to categorize just fighters this way. Professional athletes in general, they kind of have this trump card that they'll hand out to people whose responsibility it is to go on TV and sort of be critical of the sport. And that is like, yeah, but you didn't play, right? And you'll get that a lot. Like, I played with these guys, so like my opinion is kind of more valuable than yours.
Yeah.
And that's true in, I think, all professional sports. Anytime you have a broadcaster, a commentator, anything like that, whose background is in that sport, whose background is more in journalism or things like that, that'll open up criticism from athletes to say, like, yeah, but you don't really understand because you didn't play, right? But I think the reason that kind of falls flat for me, that I never understood it, is because even two professional athletes will completely disagree on a given subject. You can watch a fight and you'll have one professional athlete saying, I thought this guy won, or one professional boxer saying, I thought this guy won, and another one saying, I thought the other one won, right? So how do you account for that, right? Like, because really at the end of the day, it's just your opinion. It doesn't, it's and it could be informed for sure. The experience definitely weighs into your opinion, but you'll still find disagreements even between people who are professionals. And if it's really about like, hey, the level of experience I have, then, I mean, where does it stop? At a certain point, I also feel like, does that mean that people who are more successful in their career, that their opinions are more valuable than people who weren't? Right? So, like,
yeah.
like, does Floyd Mayweather have the number one opinion on all boxing because he experienced a level of success that other welterweights now didn't experience?
Right.
Right? And I think most people would say logically, no, of course not. It doesn't work that way, right? So there is a threshold. There's like a cutoff where at a certain point, people will say, no, you're being ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, you said it right there. Everybody has a different judgment, right? A different opinion.
Yeah.
It's the same thing like with judges, right? That's why you get different scorecards all the time. Of course, sometimes a little bit of influence, but this is not that kind of podcast.
I'm not a big time conspiracy theorist. I know, like, and people who know much more about the inside of the sport, people like Teddy Atlas, who obviously knows well more than me. He'll come out and say this is corruption. It's a conspiracy. At the end of the day, I chalk most of that stuff up to just human judgment and the fact that it's so subjective.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that everything's so subjective that, you got a lot of people who are, and that's not to say there's no corruption, but I don't feel as though, like, judges are rampantly being paid off. Like, look at it's hard to keep that stuff secret.
Oh, yeah.
Look at that.
Especially this day and age.
People end up started writing books about it and stuff like that 10 years later.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, what I would expect that, people just typically aren't, the more people understand or know about something, the more risk there is. Eventually, everything comes out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Over time. So if all these judges were getting paid off all the time, I think we would just hear more about it.
Yeah.
Because you can't keep it secret.
No, especially nowadays you can't. I mean,
no.
Too many people with cameras and audio recorders and then too much money to be made off of some dirt, some good stories.
So I'm sure there's corruption. I'm certain of it. I don't know that it's as to the extent that a lot of times I look at fights where people say, oh, there was corruption, and I think that's just poor judging. It's bad human judgment. You know what I mean? It's somebody who, and I think that some of the scoring mechanisms that we utilize in the sport of boxing are kind of open the door to it, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I think that a lot of ways that we have, well, I know that you're familiar with it, but it's referred to as what's called a 10-point must system.
Yeah.
And the idea is that every round, one fighter gets a 10 and one fighter gets less than 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
So essentially every round you have to pick a winner, and there's an emphasis on that from when you are judging in amateurs all the way up through professionals. One fighter has to win. I can't tell you how many times I watch around and go, shit, I don't know who won that round. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know who won that round. Like, you'll hear people say it all the time, oh, I don't envy the judges in this fight. You know what that means? It's super close. It's hard to tell, right? And whenever you get a fight like that where it's super close and it's hard to tell, if you have to pick a winner, you're probably going to pick the guy who you liked better.
Right.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna go, oh, I like what that guy's doing better. I pick that guy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what happens is you'll pick that guy over and over every round. You'll pick him for 10 straight rounds. The
Yeah.
same, but yeah, I like that guy or girl. I like the way she's doing it, so I'm gonna pick. And then the next thing you know, you've given 10 rounds to someone in a fight that everybody else saw and went, damn, that was real close. That
Yeah.
was a close fight, right? And I think that there's too big a dependency, on saying someone has to win a round. If a round's hard to score, you look at it and you go, yeah, that was hard. I don't know. Let's just call it even.
Yeah.
We'll,
Yeah.
we'll pick it up in another round.
Yeah.
We'll pick it up in another.
I never understood that 10 must because
Yeah.
there's times when, especially early in the match, like or they got 1 or 2 rounds. The first 2 rounds, they might be just testing each other out.
Nobody does nothing.
Exactly, and it's like, how are you gonna award somebody a 10 when they didn't? They
Yeah.
both equally didn't do anything.
No, it's frowned upon. It's frowned upon to call rounds even, and you'll hear a lot of arguments to the contrary. Of course, you'll hear people say, "Well, you'll get more draws." I think my feedback to that has always been, a draw is better than a bad decision.
Yeah.
It's
Oh yeah.
better to end up with a draw than to end up with a bad decision where you're like, wow, that was really bad. So I think that's one thing. And the other thing is you don't end up with more draws. I'm not saying call every round even. I'm saying there will be rounds where you can pick a clear winner, and there will be rounds where it's difficult.
Yeah.
I have a hard time. I watch a lot of boxing. I have a hard time picking a winner
Yeah.
sometimes. And I don't feel like you should have to. That's kind of I feel like you should be able to look at it and say, even mathematically, if you're talking about fights are even rounds, most of the time, not always, but 4 rounds, 6 rounds, 8 rounds, 10 rounds.
Yeah.
If you throw one round even, then all of a sudden, 6 rounds to 6 isn't a possibility anymore.
Yeah.
Right? So it does not necessarily result in like more draws and stuff
Right.
like that. I think they overcomplicate it, bro. Let me ask you this:
mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen a fight? Like not a boxing match, just like a fight.
Oh, like a street fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Like back in school or something
Yeah.
like that. You see 2 guys throw down.
Yeah.
Yeah, many times, I'm sure, right?
Of course. I've been in a couple.
Did anyone ever have to teach you to tell who won or not?
Nah.
Nah, right?
It's whoever last man standing, whoever looked better.
Even if right. There's like a lot of wit. Like I feel like when you, as someone who's watched fights, who's seen fights, I've seen people fight. I've had a few. You look at it and you're like, yeah, nobody ever had to teach you how to tell who won a fight.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and at the end of the day, that's what. And people will say, well, boxing's not fighting, right? Which it's not. It's not fighting. It's not the same as 2 guys just going out there.
Yeah.
But from a judging standpoint, when you're trying to figure out who won, I would assert that the criteria are pretty similar.
Mm-hmm.
Like, at the end of the day, you're just looking for, which one of those guys did you think beat the other one up more?
Yeah.
Is the gist of it.
Right.
Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, to that point, Floyd Mayweather would have lost a lot of fights. If they went to decision, and then you would see, hey, who did the more work, who put more, not too much damage, but who put more work into it.
I don't know, man. Like, I don't agree. I actually feel like when you look at it, when I put it that way, like, hey, you're looking at, just a normal fight. Nobody has to tell you who did it. Floyd almost never gets hit, bro. Like,
that's true.
You look at it, he almost never gets hit.
Yeah.
Right? He gets hit a few times, right? And what Floyd takes criticism because he didn't get hit a lot, and because he didn't throw a lot of punches later in his career, right? So he had hand problems. He moved up in weight, so he didn't throw a lot of punches. He didn't get hit a lot. The punches were surgical.
Yeah.
They landed perfectly. They were timed perfectly, but they may come only just a few around, right?
Right.
So what happens is you end up watching a 3-minute round where a guy lands 6 punches and the other guy only landed 1.
Yeah.
Right? And then you go, okay, at the end of that fight, Floyd won, and people were they found it boring a lot of times, right? People go, oh, that was boring.
Right.
So I think realistically, even if you judge using schoolyard criteria, you wouldn't go back and say like, oh, that guy was working more. At the end of the day, the amount of work someone's putting into it doesn't matter if they're getting beat up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you could work all day, right? But if I'm the one landing punches and you're not, I'm winning.
You're true. Yeah. That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's how it works, right? That's how fights work. So like I think that he gets a lot of criticism for that. The other thing I think that's interesting is it's kind of one of these situations where it's not Floyd's job to get hit, right? So like what I mean by that is they never trained to say like, okay, how am I going to let fighters hit me?
Right.
at the end of the day, it's his opponent's job to come up with a game plan that will allow him to land punches on Floyd. That's the idea. So if you're Manny Pacquiao, you train in a camp, and you and your coach sit down, you come up with a game plan to land punches. If you get to the fight and you can't land the punches, that's not Floyd's fault. I don't know why people blame Floyd for that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you get to the fight, you couldn't land a shot on him, that's Manny's fault, right? His job and his camp's job was to come up with a plan so that they could land more punches on Floyd Mayweather. You know what I mean? And I'm just using Manny as an example. I'm not picking on Manny. He's obviously remarkable.
Yeah.
Even at this point in his career, I think he's amazing to watch. He's always entertaining. You can make a case he's far more entertaining than perhaps Floyd is in his fights, depending on what you like to watch or not watch. But at the end of the day, like, I look at it and, it's not Floyd's job to get hit by people. Other people have to figure out how to hit him. That's their job. If they can't do it, then don't get mad at him. This is sort of the way that I feel about it.
No, and you're right. I mean, boxing is trying to not to get hit, right? Defense, and then put some damage and hit. So exactly, hit and don't get hit. Exactly. Now you mentioned Manny Pacquiao. He beat that young Keith Thurman, and so now
hell of a fight too.
Great fight. It was a really good fight. I didn't know who was going to go. I mean, I know Pacquiao dominated, but I really thought, okay, well, they're probably going to give this fight to Thurman because he was a young stud. Pick him up again. Conspiracy theories, right? I thought they'll give it to Thurman, but no, it went Manny's way. It was convincingly Manny's fight. I mean,
I felt like it was a very close fight.
Did you?
I think Manny was hurt a number of times in that fight. At the end of the day, I looked at it and said the knockdown made all the difference to me.
Yeah.
So, like, you look at it, 6 rounds to 6, Keith Thurman got knocked down, he loses. It was pretty much a straight-up fight for a lot of those rounds. And so some people felt like Manny dominated. I felt like it was a very close fight, but I feel like it's hard to find enough rounds to give Keith Thurman considering the knockdown. I absolutely agree the right man won.
Yeah.
The right man won.
I really feel that Manny dominated the fight. He dominated the ring, and it was like Thurman was stepping into his ring. That's what it seemed like in the fight.
I felt like that's one of those ones where you're just like,
I have to watch it again.
If you left the schoolyard, you went, damn, that was a good scrap right
there.
Yeah,
it was. Yeah,
like that was good.
Those
guys were getting at each other. Like,
you know what?
Oh, yeah, that was a good fight.
If it happens, Mikey Garcia, Pacquiao. Now that'd be a good fight.
I'm actually not in the camp, but, like, put it this way, it might be a good fight.
Yeah.
But I right now I look at it and I don't see, outside of age, because it catches up with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
At some point in time, people just can't do the same things that and what Manny Pacquiao's been able to do at this age is remarkable.
Yeah.
It's absolutely remarkable. Outside of age, catching up with Manny, which could happen, particularly because the state we're in right now, right? If this fight were to happen, it's not going to happen for a while from now.
No, yeah.
There's not even boxing going on.
Right.
So I think outside of age and rust kind of catching up with Manny, I don't see Mikey taking that fight.
Well,
I just don't. Yeah, I can't see it even really being and that's no disrespect to Mikey. I think he's incredible. He's had first of all, he's accomplished tremendous things in his career. Tremendous things. Mikey has had 2 fights at welterweight, one of which did not go his way. He lost virtually every round of that fight.
Mm-hmm.
You could say, well, that was against a much larger man in Errol Spence Jr. I would assert that Errol Spence's size was not the thing that carried that fight for Errol Spence.
Yeah.
It's not like he was leaning all over him and pushing him around
right.
and doing stuff like that. He was working at the end of a jab, and he outboxed Mikey. So one, I felt Mikey lost virtually every round. The other one was recently against Jesse Vargas, a fight that I do feel Mikey won because of knockdowns, but it was a competitive fight.
Yeah.
And Jesse won a number of rounds, including like the first 4 in a row, before Mikey kind of timed that right hand and found it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very easy to give Jesse 6 rounds. I completely understand. I personally could find 6 rounds for Jesse Vargas in that fight, and he would have lost because of the knockdowns and things like that. But at the same time, I look at it and I go, we're talking about Manny Pacquiao. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're talking about This is not, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
uh, I don't look at the competitive fight with Jesse Vargas and a wash against Errol Spence and go, yeah, he can really hang with Manny, right? Like it's
Yeah.
just not the thing that I just don't see it that way.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I would love nothing more than to see those two in the ring and to even be proven wrong about that. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? I'd love to see a competitive fight between those guys. I don't really root against fighters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not my thing.
No, yeah.
Like I don't root against Mikey, and when I'm critical, I'm not trying to be mean. Yeah, I'm really just looking at it and going, you know, I can't see it based off of these other things. But man, if I was wrong, that'd be cool.
Yeah. No, I just think it'd be a good fight to watch. And again, this is me
Yeah,
as
yeah.
the common or casual fan. You know, like it'd be just a good fight. And I know Mikey's always chasing those money fights, and that'd be a money fight. You
Yeah.
know, and
I mean, and don't get me wrong, I would pay for it if it was on pay per view. I
yeah,
would watch it. I would support it in every way I could. We would talk about it endlessly, and I wish them both all the best because I think that they've both done in their own way, you know, terrific things in their career, and I think it's a good fight for both of them. If I had to pick a winner right now, just based off of what I know, you know, or what I've seen, I
yeah,
guess I should say, I would definitely pick Manny.
yeah,
I
yeah,
would definitely pick Manny. But that's no disrespect to Mikey, and I think if I was wrong, I'd be pleasantly surprised.
yeah, yeah. You know, I've heard there's like new like an update, right, with Miami. They're starting to sanction fights. While they sanction the WWE, they call them an
Yeah,
essential. Yeah,
WWE.
they're essential
Essential
business.
business.
Yeah, so they haven't stopped. They haven't stopped at all. They've been working. They've been putting out all their stuff, but now they're gonna
I
do it
know.
in their own with I think no audience, but they're gonna do their own thing, right?
They did WrestleMania, right?
They
They
did
did
WrestleMania. Yeah,
WrestleMania.
we watched that.
Yeah.
It was a little weird, but yeah.
You weren't into that?
You know what? It brought me
The
back
pre-tape
to
matches?
it brought me back to like back the old days. There's a little bit of nostalgia going on right there, but
That's cool.
it was all right. It was fun to watch. That was the only thing out. It was the only thing out.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I hadn't watched pay per view in such a long time that I was excited for this. I was really stoked about the UFC fight, but that didn't happen. So
So as I understand it, they kind of went the movie route, right? Where they pre-taped some matches over a period of days, and they had like special effects and editing
yes,
and stuff like that,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Which that
Yeah.
was again that was old school. That's what they used to do back in the day. You know, back in the day they used to film all that stuff. You know, backstage and they'd have some live matches, but then they'd throw in one of those matches in there, and it was
One of those pre-taped ones.
yeah. So it was really cool. That was a cool thing about it. But
Yeah, man. I still see these cats who. So I used to when I was younger. I watched wrestling kind of during the Attitude Era,
yeah,
right? And I haven't watched it in years, basically since the Attitude Era. So since like the kind of mid to late 1990s,
hmm,
basically, I guess. Uh, and I'm surprised that every time I hear some piece of news, it always still involves some of these cats that I used to watch.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like they're like Undertakers and like, damn, dude, Undertaker was around before I even started watching
yeah.
wrestling. You know,
He's 100%
but
the dead man. That dude does not die. I mean, he comes back and he's retired three
dude,
times, and
like Goldberg, I was like Goldberg was on WrestleMania. I was like, what,
that one was just silly, dude. Nobody wanted to see
bro?
that, dude. Did you
Man, no,
did
so
you
yeah,
did
like
you
I
hear
said,
about that match, or did you watch it at all?
the one with Goldberg.
Yeah.
Yeah, so well, I'll tell you what I heard. I heard that he was supposed to wrestle someone else,
Mm-hmm.
but that cat had leukemia.
Yeah.
Is that what he had?
Yeah. Yeah.
He had leukemia, and so didn't want to like take the risk
Mm-hmm.
of participating in a WrestleMania
Yeah.
event or
Roman
something like
Reigns.
that.
Yeah. Roman Reigns.
Yeah, yeah, Roman Reigns.
The Rock's cousin. Dwayne
Yeah, forgive me.
Johnson's cousin.
I'm certainly not as well versed in the WWE as I am in boxing, so I don't know everybody's name. But yeah, so Roman Reigns, and then I heard so they replaced him with that cat who fought Tyson Fury, Braun Strowman.
Yes, Bronson. Yeah,
That's
that's right.
the
That's
guy.
right. I forgot
He
about that.
did
Yeah.
the pay per view against Tyson Fury.
Yes,
Right?
he did. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So I heard that Braun Strowman like destroyed him in 3 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
2 minutes.
Well, they
Squash
both
match.
they both did their signature moves on each other like 4 or 5 times, and then one of them
That
won
was
at the
it.
end. That's it. It was so dumb, dude. It was so dumb. And that was Brock Lesnar had a match just like that, where
Yeah,
they
like
did
the
signature
next night or
moves.
something, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and it was over. So That's why I say it wasn't as entertaining as I thought it would be. But
Gotcha. I
going back
gotcha.
to the sanctioning fights, Bob Arum was saying how he's looking into using the facilities out there in Miami, and he's close with Vince McMahon and the WWE. So he's talking about maybe putting something together to bring boxing back, maybe as early as June. Have you heard anything
Yeah,
about that? Yeah,
I heard him say June or July
yeah.
in the
July
interview
maybe
that I heard.
California, but June Miami.
Yeah, I heard him say June or July. I think it's wishful. Everybody wants it to come back, but I also uh, it's also challenging. Like Bob was one of the first people to criticize Dana White that I heard when Dana White was thinking about putting on events too soon.
Yep.
And he made a lot of really good points in that interview. He actually did an interview with Stax. Bob Arum did.
Yeah.
And he made a lot of really good points in that interview that, for instance, if you're going to have any combat sporting event, that you have to have medical professionals on staff,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you have to have medical personnel, you have to have ambulances, and that it's not uncommon for people to have to go from those events to hospitals because they sustained injuries,
Right.
right? And so you look at it and you go, okay, well, what is the situation? What are the hospitals going to be like at that point in time?
Right.
What types of patients are going to be at those hospitals? Are we going to be exposing people who go to those hospitals? Are we going to be taking doctors or beds or anything away from people who need it? And these were kind of points that Bob was making
Yeah.
in his interview. And they're all, I listened to him and thought, wow, those are all like really well thought out points
Mm-hmm.
from Bob. And it was all, a case of, for Dana White, the claim here was that it was irresponsible, I think, for Dana White to sort of return to events.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting. Like, obviously, I want it back sooner rather than later. I also think Bob made a lot of good points about why you can't rush it back.
Yeah.
Why we have to be in a certain position, within the country before we can do stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I understand it. As a fan, obviously, I want to see boxing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I want to see boxing for sure. But, I also, like I said, there's same way with my personal life. There's a certain amount of caution that you have to exercise in doing it, and a certain amount of responsibility that you have to take as a promoter, in order to do it.
Yeah, when I heard Anthony's interview and Bob talking about all that stuff, I took it as just, hey, you know what? If I can't, you can't. That's the way I took it. You know what I mean? That
Maybe.
and I was like, that's not cool. And then it's all coming now. It's like, now that we can, well then let's do it. You know what I mean? So you got the governments and you got different counties are saying different things, but most of them are saying, hey, we're gonna extend it another 30 days and we're gonna extend it another. Some of them are saying, some doctors have said maybe 2 years, which is crazy.
Well,
But they've
I
said
think
almost
that
2 years.
when everything's not going to go back to normal as we knew it beforehand overnight. So I think it depends on what you mean. Like 2 years of
2 years of
this
wearing
doesn't-
masks and social distancing.
Yeah.
We're talking like they have a full stadium or an arena, but a third of it is only filled because
so you
everybody's
keep
like
everyone
skipping seats.
separated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, who knows? I mean,
That's what we have to do.
yeah, it's all we have to adapt to everything, just like we do every time. Just adapting.
Yeah.
But one of my other points that I was going to bring to you was that Bob Arum mentioned the caliber of fights. You're going to get a lot of like the up and coming young boxers that are going to want to fight because they want to make that money. A lot of the big time fighters are not, because they're not going to be. The promoters are not the fighters. I'm sure the fighters want to fight. They'll fight in empty arenas all day long. It's the promoters that aren't going to put those big fights because there's just no money in it. They're going to lose a lot of gate money, right? Pay-per-views.
Yeah.
No one's going to, not a lot of people are going to pay for pay-per-views if it's not the big stars, So
yeah, I think I heard some fighters say, for instance, I think it was Teofimo Lopez who said he wasn't interested in fighting Lomachenko without an audience or without a crowd.
yeah.
And, even Chris Van Heerden today was on Stax's new show on Instagram Live.
Oh yeah, the Sweet Science Gym show something.
Yeah, the Sweet Science session.
Yeah, there you go.
Which airs on Supreme Boxing's Instagram Live.
Yeah.
And he said that, it takes some getting used to. He would do it, but he admitted that it's very different because in some ways, just like I imagine wrestling is, they're feeding off that crowd.
Oh yeah.
Now I will say, like, Showtime, when all of this started, Showtime aired a card with no fans in attendance.
Yeah.
And I thought on TV it went okay. Compared to, like, I watched a wrestling match on TV with no fans in attendance. This is the weirdest thing ever. I can't believe they still put it on TV.
Yeah.
Like, I really can't. Like, it's the strangest thing to watch.
Yeah.
There's nothing else on. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll check this out during WrestleMania or whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, this is weird, bro. Like,
See, the difference is in WrestleMania or professional wrestling that they do, it's all predetermined. So they can have a match like if it's just a workout, and they're just putting a good workout show, right, for their boss. In boxing, they're fighting, bro. They're fighting for their lives. They're fighting for paychecks. They're fighting for their lives. So that's why you feed off the audience, but not as much as wrestlers do.
Yeah, well, I also think it's just not as awkward to watch on TV.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what I said. Like, when Showtime did it and they had the commentators there, they were talking, yes, you could notice that there wasn't a lot of people there. However, it really didn't come across as awkward on TV so much.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's strange for the fighters, right? No doubt it's strange for the fighters getting acclimated to it and not having kind of that crowd reaction or response.
Right.
But it's still, I thought it played well on TV compared to, like, professional wrestling, which to me just, I don't know what it is.
Silly.
I watched it on TV and was like, dude, this is trippy because like all these things that would normally get like big crowd reactions that kind of get you into it.
Yeah.
Those things aren't happening.
Yeah.
So you're just watching two dudes do stuff where you're like, oh, okay, like that was acrobatic, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, it's just different.
Yeah.
It's just very different.
Well, the funniest is when these guys are cutting their promo in the ring and they say something that normally would feed into like an audience and they have nobody to feed into. So that's the funny trippy part.
What or anything like that.
What? No. So these young fighters that are gonna be taking these fights, if it does happen in June, are these? There's some big name fighters, but some of them that are starting off. Do those guys ever go through? And I'm not good at segues, so I'm just gonna throw in the foundation, right? The Just Boxing Life Foundation.
Go for it.
Is that any way that your foundation would help out some of these boxers that aren't fighting right now?
Yes.
And how so? If you don't mind giving us a quick little intro about it too, because I know I've mentioned your foundation before, but I don't do justice as well as you will.
Absolutely. So Just Boxing Foundation is a project that myself and some of the members of Just Boxing Live have been working on for a period of time now. We are at this point, as of November last year, although I think the official letters and everything came through in January or February timeframe, we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization recognized by the IRS and the United States government. So we're a charitable foundation, and I'm sure it's all in the name. You guys get it's on the shirt, Just Boxing. But the mission of Just Boxing Foundation is to support past and empower future generations of boxers. So one of the first things that we did when we were able to form the foundation is we did some private fundraising, and we raised money to help members of the Olympic team trials that were in Lake Charles, Louisiana, back in December of 2019, to provide donations to them to help with travel and expenses related to the Olympic trials. And the reason that we do that is because in the United States, the amateurs themselves, the athletes, I should say, they foot the bill for that. So USA Boxing, for instance, doesn't pay for your airfare and your lodging and all those things.
I didn't know that. I thought they paid for everything. Yeah.
No, they do not. You have to make your way there.
Wow.
Of your own accord.
Once you're there on the team, that's when they take over and they pay everything, right?
They don't pay for as much as you think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no. I mean, there's the idea that, like, if you go to the Olympic Training Center and you're training there, that's one level. But you have to consider that, a lot of times for international competition, it's not paid for. A lot of times especially for national competition, it's not paid for.
Wow.
The athletes are making their way to do that. So there were, I think, 108 combatants that competed for the Olympic team trials. And obviously, I would love to have helped every one of them, get there and do that.
Yeah.
We weren't in a position to be able to do that. The foundation is kind of just starting. But what we were able to do is give contributions to everyone from Los Angeles and Orange County, which was a total of 10 combatants. So Los Angeles is very much a hotbed for boxing and boxing training. And so we were fortunate to have a number of people from our community and neighboring communities here that were going to the Olympic team trials. And for me, as we're growing as an organization, there's that saying that charity starts at home, but it doesn't end there.
Yeah.
So like this is my home. This is where I'm from. I was born and raised in LA.
Yeah.
My passion for boxing was founded here through foreign boxing and through watching it just with friends and family and things like that. So the initiative that we're focused on right now, we refer to as Boxing LA. And Boxing LA is about, like I said, supporting past, empowering future generations of boxers in Los Angeles. So that's kind of how we began. And that was our first initiative, which is in December of 2019. We had planned, actually, to this month announce our second initiative as part of Boxing LA. And
are we breaking news right now?
Well, yeah. We'll break some news, but I'll kind of explain what our plan was and how we've had to adjust that based on the events of the pandemic and how that's rolled out.
Mm-hmm. So
our second initiative for Boxing LA, we had planned to introduce a scholarship for women who box. That was number two, and we were going to announce that at the beginning of April. And the scholarship would go through the application process, and we'd be awarding scholarships closer to the start of the fall session, which is in August and September.
Mm-hmm.
And this was all planned and approved by the board. We have a board, I should say.
It's official?
Yeah, it is an official foundation. So it was all planned and approved by the board, and then COVID-19 hit.
Yeah.
And so this was back in February when it had been planned and approved, and we were working on all the things that we were going to be doing, like the website, content, things like that. And then COVID-19 hit, and we kind of put it on hold to see how things were going to transpire with COVID-19. And then, shelter in place took effect, and, we're all adjusting to that in the way that we are now. That's why we're doing this.
Right.
And so as we got closer to April, and through discussions with the board of Just Boxing Foundation, we realized that perhaps our resources would be better utilized to help aid fighters who were suffering financial loss as a result of COVID-19.
Right.
And so that's what we decided to do. So we weren't able to turn it around fast enough to get it to be announced in April like we had planned to announce.
Yeah.
But I do expect within the next 2 weeks, hopefully by May 1st, actually, we'll be announcing a relief program for fighters who have suffered loss of income as a result of COVID-19. So I'll talk for a moment, if you don't mind, kind of about how that will work. So
Sure.
This is part of the Boxing LA initiative. Again, I would love to be able to help everyone. I don't have resources to help everyone at this time. When I say I don't, I mean Just Boxing Foundation is in its infancy. We're just started our first initiative in last December, and we're growing. And so I'm aware of many events here that were canceled in the months of March or April.
Mm-hmm.
There's at least 7 events just off the top of my head. I know that we have documentation that shows all the events that were planned within Los Angeles County, specifically.
Yeah.
But there's at least 7 events in March and April that I'm aware of that were canceled. And so what we're going to do is anyone who was scheduled for one of the events in Los Angeles County in the month of March or April, those fighters suffered a loss of income as a result of cancellations from COVID-19, they can apply for a grant through Just Boxing Foundation.
Nice.
And all the applications and everything will be available online, and I'll announce that, shortly as soon as we get all that finalized. But they'll be able to apply for a grant to use for things like living expenses, to use for rent, car payment, insurance, groceries,
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is that they need them for.
Yeah.
So we've had to go through we had to audible, a little bit here because we were going through and getting all the legal framework in place for a scholarship when we realized, we were going to have to adjust. Now, fortunately, they're not very different. Going through the process of awarding a scholarship and the process of awarding a grant are very similar.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the things that we had planned to do are kind of going to work out in a similar fashion. But, I have every confidence that we'll be able to to assist fighters here in the very near term, because I'm just confident in the team that we're surrounded with. They've helped me through this entire process. It's been, the same team of individuals, the same law firm, the same, everything.
Yeah.
And everybody's been tremendously supportive, highly responsive, and we were able to get, with I think we only did, 2 weeks worth of fundraising for the Olympic thing back in December 2019. And we already have been, my wife, her name is Shenandoah. She runs a little kind of like embroidery type business, Designs by Doa.
Yeah.
She has been making masks and selling masks for the last 5 weeks,
Nice.
6 weeks.
Yeah.
And all the proceeds from that have been donated to Just Boxing Foundation. It's all going to go to boxers.
Oh, wow.
So,
yeah,
she's also a member of the board. So, she has created several hundred masks, like literally by hand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That she's been selling. We had someone do a Facebook fundraiser that went well for their birthday, and so we've been taking in donations and things like that through private channels mostly. But we're going to be able to help some fighters out here, and hopefully, as we get through this initiative, we'll be able to raise more money and help even more, and do several rounds of grants. So not just one round of grants, but maybe, if this continues on, we can look at other months, right? If it's not just March and April, we can look at May and June. Okay, were you guys scheduled to fight in May or June? Another possibility is to say, hey, let's expand to other areas outside of Los Angeles.
Right.
So we're going to start at home, and we'll go from there.
And how are you guys doing your fundraising? You mentioned that the other one was a private fundraising that you guys did for 2 weeks. How are you guys doing this one? Is it just through your wife's masks, or obviously there's more?
There's more to it than that. So there's actually a couple ways that Just Boxing Foundation gets funds, but I'm happy to be transparent about that stuff so that people understand. So one way that we're getting it for this, when I say private fundraising, what I mean is I went around for the Olympic trials. I went around to people who I know and said, hey, this is for a good cause. I'm gonna give this money to people who are going to the Olympics.
Yeah.
And got private investments in that way. So there's no public fundraising in the sense that there was like nowhere where you could go and just donate and do all this different stuff.
Yeah.
And that was because kind of the short notice or the short period of time with which we were doing fundraising. And also because the foundation hadn't technically been finalized yet.
Right.
We were still waiting on some of the legal things, the legal framework to be finalized at that point in time. So for this one, there's a couple things. One is we have a YouTube channel. So you guys should follow Just Boxing on YouTube. It is a monetized YouTube channel, and that's where you can find episodes of Just Boxing Live, which is us. Again, it's a way for us to take boxers in the community and promote them, and give them a platform and give them a voice. So it very much supports our mission statement of supporting fighters. So I think that's where you can find episodes of Just Boxing Live. That's also, you can find some good training and tutorial videos, not by me, but by coach, by Marco Trejo, who is the owner of Sweet Science Gym. So that is a monetized channel. So we do get ad revenue from YouTube, and that does go towards causes for Just Boxing Foundation. So some of it comes in that way. The masks is one way. So Designs by Doa, you can follow Designs by Doa on Facebook if you buy masks from Designs by Doa. All of the proceeds from that go to Just Boxing Foundation. And we also have done public Facebook fundraisers. So someone for their birthday, for instance, donates to Just Boxing Foundation through Facebook. The other thing that you'll see more of is as we go and we announce this, it should kind of align with the website being finalized and put out into production. People will be able to go through their website and donate. They'll be able to go through Facebook and donate. If you want to see more about our initiatives, you can see our public profile on GuideStar. We are a bronze. We've only been around a very short period of time. We're a bronze level nonprofit, which is, I think only 2% or something like that of nonprofits that are on GuideStar meet the criteria to be bronze. So I think we've done a lot in a very short period of time, and you'll see more fundraisers and stuff from us. But those are some of the ways that we've made money.
Yeah.
Overall, I would say right now we've probably raised total for both initiatives, for boxing related initiatives, somewhere in the vicinity of $8,000 to $10,000. All the specific details of it will be on the website.
Yeah.
Some of that has gone to the Olympics. Like I said, you know, we're going to be completely transparent with where all the money is going. Everyone's going to understand where all that stuff is. It's, I think, an important part of forming a foundation and is, you know, growing trust and
That's
transparency with people so they know, you know, that their donations are going to good use. But these are the types of things. This is where the donations are going. So
that's
they're going
awesome.
to.
I think it's very very important. First of all, is that creating, doing that kind of a service. I've always, I think the last 3 years I've been questioning myself as to what am I doing. What kind of service am I providing for the community and for my family and for my friends. And that's one of the reasons why I started doing the podcast, creating the same thing of a platform for giving them something to talk about, share. Um, I'm not a man of wealth or money, but I have time, and if I don't have time, I
Yeah.
make time. So that's one of the things that I'll do is I always offer up my time, and same thing. I'll reach out to you and tell you that whatever I can do to help, let me know, and then I can help out.
You're
But
doing it, man.
oh,
I'm
hey,
here. I'm pitching it right now.
there you go. Now you said you have a team, a big team with your foundation. Uh, how many people do you have in that team?
It depends what you mean. So we have four board members, which include me. I'm a member of the board. I'm also the president of Just Boxing Foundation. So there are four board members, and those board members have to have alignment on any initiative. So what that means is that things are not just at my discretion.
Right.
So I don't just go, hey, this is how we're going to spend money, and we're going to do this.
Yeah.
There's a team of individuals who get together and they say, we vote on initiatives.
Of course.
So, for instance, for the scholarship, I put together a presentation. I had done a lot of legwork in terms of research and analysis of how we were going to pick the schools and different things like that. And I presented all that to the board, and we voted on it before the COVID-19 thing dropped. So that's typically how we do business. Now, in terms of the team, I mean, for instance, we work with a lot of people in the boxing community. Just Boxing Live is an example. I work with Anthony Saldana.
Yeah.
He's the lead writer for Supreme Boxing. He's the host of his new show on Instagram Live, the Sweet Science Session, things like that. So I also, I present things to Anthony and ask for his feedback and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I do to other members of the boxing community as well. So I think that when I say my team, I'm referring to a couple, and then also Chisholm, who's the law firm that we work with to get all this done. They specialize in nonprofit law. I think they're based in Florida, and they have been extremely helpful and diligent. And not only that, I mean, they have, I would say, exceeded every expectation I had for how to do these things.
Nice.
Because I have no legal background. I don't know how to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I can say I could not have done it without them. So I think between Chisholm, between the board, and between the connections that we've been able to make in the boxing community, including Stacks, including Marco Trejo, the owner of Sweet Science Gym in Hawthorne, California, and many others, we've been able to get to where we are now. So and of course, the most important thing is I have a very supportive family. So my family, they don't give me a hard time about spending time on these initiatives and working nights on websites and doing things like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they're so tremendously supportive, more than anything, that I think that's kind of what I mean when I refer to the team. It's the board members, it's the people in the boxing community, it's my wonderful family, it's Chisholm, the law firm that we've engaged to do this stuff.
Yeah.
Even people, like you, who are going to let me come on here and talk about it endlessly. You could probably tell I've been built up not getting to talk about all this stuff for such a long time. I'm just spewing all this stuff at you, but that's what I mean. We're just surrounded by the right people to make these things happen. And I'm fortunate in that way.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where I knew you had the foundation, and I just wanted to know more about it, and then I wanted to be able to share it. So this was a great way for me to do it and ask you here. So
yeah, man.
I'm
Yeah,
proud.
all this stuff. The
dude,
t-shirts. I'm gonna start selling these, and all that
good.
will go to Just Boxing Foundation.
I told you you should have started selling those things a long time ago.
You're right. You did tell me that.
There's a big
But
demand for
yeah,
those shirts.
but yeah, and if you buy a shirt, it'll go towards this boxing foundation.
There you
So
go. That's
doesn't go to me.
that's awesome, dude. I think it's great what you're doing. You know, keep it up with the podcast and the foundation. I want to say that I'm proud of you for sure for doing all this, man.
Thank you, bro.
Because I look up to you, man. You know, not just as a podcaster, a fellow podcaster, but as a friend. You know.
I appreciate that, man. But
Yeah.
you're always a big bro, man.
There
I follow your lead.
you
Follow
go.
your lead on this stuff.
Yeah. Just not on the drinking part.
No, yeah, maybe not on that part. No, but likely.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't. Yeah, I can't do it. But I don't even. I stay away from hard liquor anymore. I haven't been able to do that since I was in my young 20s, man.
Oh
Stuff
yeah.
will tear me up.
No, not good. Not to mention it dehydrates you. That's why I've been drinking
Yeah,
this
exactly.
water all day long.
Exactly. You got to drink that water.
Yeah.
No way, man. I follow your lead into all this stuff, and I appreciate all of the motivation and inspiration that you give to me personally. You know, and opportunities like this. I really enjoy opportunities like this. I'm not typically. I'm not a very. This probably sounds funny considering I have a show that I like put out on Facebook and on YouTube, and there's like 30 some odd thousand followers on YouTube. But I'm kind of a private individual,
Yeah.
and I have the people who surround me. It's all I have a great quality of individuals around me is what I feel like, but not necessarily a huge quantity.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't have like a ton of friends, right? I have really close friends who are
There's
very
no
supportive.
entourage.
Yeah, I don't have an entourage.
Yeah.
So like I'm always surprised when people continue to invite me on shows like this. Because I'm like, dude, like I love talking to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I could do this for hours,
Yeah, yeah.
right? You know, this is why we do this, right? But I could do this for hours, but I'm like, this has to be like among the lowest rated shows you're gonna get in
No,
terms of watches and views, dude.
no way.
It's like I don't have like a giant entourage who's gonna be hitting all the like buttons and all that stuff. So every time someone invites me back, I'm like, really? All right, yeah, I'll come back.
Yeah, yeah. No, 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 man. No. On the contrary, man. You're Sean, dude. You're Sean Fitzgerald from Just Boxing Live, and that's big, dude. I know when I'm listening to your show, I'm like, I can't believe I talked to that guy.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah. Who do you like? Like, who do you model yourself after, or do you have any role models? Or are there any people who, from an interviewing standpoint, like or podcasting
No,
standpoint?
I mean, I'll tell you, I when I first really like started paying attention to like interviews and or interviewers was none of those late night guys. It was none of them. It was Howard Stern,
Okay, yeah,
Tom Likas,
yeah. Okay,
and Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan. Okay.
Yeah, those are like the three that I've always when I listen to, obviously I listen to the content, but not only that is I pay attention to what how they're talking, what they're doing, and then most recently, Sean Fitzgerald at Just Boxing Live.
No.
No, seriously, like yeah, I'm not that great with words. You know, I just open my mouth and then words come out. You know, like I'm not I don't I
It's the
can't.
best way to do it.
Yeah, well, so for some of us, but
Yeah, yeah.
but then yeah, I mean, just when you listen to when I listen to myself talk and these podcasts, because sometimes I got to do a little bit of editing. I do hear a little bit of Howard Stern and a little bit of Tom Likas. Not so much Tom Likas. That was maybe when I was younger. Now I got married and I've kind of toned it down. But yeah, for sure, Joe Rogan. Like it's just those are the guys that I listen to. Howard Stern I really don't listen to anymore. But yeah, those are probably the three guys.
Howard's always got a way of making an interesting interview out of any guest.
Yeah. Well,
You know what I mean?
people have a hard time saying no to the guy.
Yeah,
You know what I
that's
mean?
true.
He's
Yeah.
very he can get a lot of things out of you, just the way he talks. But it's because he's real, and that's one of the things that I got from him was that when I'm talking to you here, I'm not gonna pretend that I'm someone else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm gonna give you who I am, and if you like it, cool, and if you don't, then you'll probably never come back. That's just the way I see it.
Yeah.
But
It's funny because I think for me, people always think I'll say like Max Kellerman and guys or Jim Lampley or guys who are like that.
yeah,
But Howard Stern, I totally understand. But you know who actually more recently where I've been like, man, this dude's got it right.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a show called Hot Ones on YouTube?
Yes. And I know
So,
exactly what you're saying, dude.
so the host of Hot Ones is a guy named Sean Evans.
Okay.
And Sean Evans is a remarkable interviewer. He truly is. I watched that show and I analyze the things that I think that the reaction that he gets from people is the reaction that I want to get, which is that they're like, how do you know this about me? You know what I mean? Like, people are like, wow, how did you like, where did you come up with this?
Right.
Where did you find this information? Right. Yeah. And every time someone's surprised where they're like, wow, like his guests literally sit there and go, wow, you're really good at this.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. And
I thought, like, man, that's got to be the thing to go for, is to have someone sit there across from you and say, you're excellent at this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, Sean Evans is a guy who recently I've been really like, I've watched so many episodes of Hot Ones now.
Yeah. And
it's
then
a good show.
It is. It's a good show. And then
I also think Sean Evans is terrific.
For him to be able to conduct that type of an interview while burning through his lips and his tongue, I mean, shit, you know that. But it's all in the research. That's all in the research. Being prepared. You know, when you're not prepared, then you just. I mean, I have notes sometimes, and like this one, there's no notes. I didn't do any notes anyway. And you know, we talked yesterday, but for the most part, I try to have my notes. I try to do, and my research is the research that you put out for me. It's on Facebook. It's on Instagram. True, yeah. That's the research. So when people act surprised,
that's how you got me the first time.
Exactly.
That's how you got me the first time.
Yep, I did.
You gave me the question where I was like, "Oh, damn."
Oh, right.
And you got it from my Instagram. Or
yeah, it was like.
And I was like, "Oh man, I wasn't ready for that question."
Yeah, like, I remember it was a November post because it was a Thanksgiving. What you were thankful for?
Yeah. That's right, man. You have a good memory too.
Yeah, sometimes. Let's see. When I'm drinking water, when that's part of my diet. No, but man, hey, this has been fun, dude. I'm glad we were able to catch up, and I was glad I've been able to give you, an hour or so of whatever, been able to talk in front of that mic again. And
I know, man. I realize now how much I miss it.
Yeah, right. It's fun.
Yeah, I do miss it.
You got to get back on it. Change it up. Do something a little different. Throw a little curveball at us.
What should I do?
I don't know. Start at home. Interview your daughter. Interview your wife.
I've done a couple podcasts with my daughter.
Yeah, I've seen that she had like a unicorn one or something like that, right? You posted something like that?
Yeah, she used to watch me, and she was like, hey, I want to do a podcast.
That's cool.
And she asked me enough that I was like, okay, well, what do you want it to be about? And she said, I want it to be about like mythical creatures. I want it to be about like alicorns and unicorns and dragons and all that. And so we did like 4 episodes before she got tired of it. But yeah, I started doing a podcast with my daughter.
Yeah, did she put it on YouTube, right? Or did you put it on YouTube?
There's like 4 of them up there.
Yeah,
I think.
That's cool.
There's 4 of them on YouTube. It's called Magic About Creatures.
Yeah.
She named it.
Magic About Creatures.
Magic About Creatures.
That's cool, man.
What it's called.
That it's funny, dude. But I'm like, I hope my son. So stupid. I go. Hopefully he likes being in front of the camera and starts, maybe because he's good. He's good for he's got that jab. He can sit there and talk but he gets really embarrassed. Like and shy. But sometimes I feel like, man, I wish he could just take over this podcasting thing. So stupid. Like
no, it's not stupid. I understand it.
Yeah.
I understand it. I was happy to do it with my daughter. In fact, you had done it with your son, I think, before.
Yeah, we've done a few episodes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, before I did it with my daughter, you had done an episode where you guys like talked about WWE and stuff.
Oh,
like
right,
that,
yeah. Yeah.
With your son, and then I did it with my daughter after that. See, you're always motivating in some way.
Stop! You're making me blush. All right, man. I think we're good. I'm gonna sign off. Anything else? Can you? What's that? Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I could talk forever. You probably shouldn't ask me that question. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna ask you to go ahead and let us know where we can find the foundation websites.
Absolutely. So you can find me right now. I have a bad habit of doing that, and I think it's I don't mean to diminish the role of other people in this. So you can find us. You can find Just Boxing Foundation at Just Boxing Live on Instagram and at Just Boxing Live on Facebook. You can also look us up by Just Boxing Foundation on Facebook. And then the website is not finished, but it should be finished within the next 2 weeks.
Cool.
The announcement that we'll make about the COVID-19 relief will align with the launch of the website, and that is www.justboxing.org.
All right, there you go. Well, there you have it. I'm actually going to introduce you at the end of the show. My guest today, Sean Fitzgerald from Just Boxing Live. Thanks a lot, brother.
Of course, bro.
I appreciate it. All right, another episode of Talking Again podcast is in the books. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can stay up to date. If you enjoyed the show, please tell your friends and family so you can share the experience. Now, it's time to close out the tap.